Hi.
Hello.
So our society tends to be pretty, focused on health and diet and looking good. And there's been a lot of talk lately about obesity and the way that it impacts our health. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate also you referencing our focus on often looking good and presentation. And I often feel that can be really what is the focus, and more so than health. Yeah, certainly obesity can be impacts upon our health, and impacts upon our joints and our hearts. It can increase or decrease the longevity of life. So being healthy is certainly important and desirable. Of course, psychologists, we tend to look at health more holistically, though, in the idea of how we feel about ourselves, how confident we are about who we are and how we go about, also factors into how do we take care of ourselves, and do we have the ability, when we are overweight or have other health impairments, do we have the ability to kind of right the ship and do what we need now to help ourselves? So I like to look at wellness as a kind of a total thing, and understanding that although obesity is a part of that, and being overweight is something I think many of us struggle with, it's probably not the emotional focus that we have on it. Sometimes is based more on outward appearances and things that are discouraging, maybe aren't very healthy to be concerned about, or realistic for all of us anyway.
Right. So as you talk about psychology in relation to obesity, that kind of strikes me, right? Because when we think about obesity, we think of it as a medical condition. So exactly what role do psychologists play in treating obesity or in educating about obesity?
Well, Mandy, I am so glad you asked. Psychologists have an enormous potential, and we play a very important role in this. Our profession is organized to really look at people more holistically, to slow things down, to understand people and their experiences. So where a dietitian can probably give someone a formula more or less for what they're needing, psychologists can help understand when people are not ready to walk that path, to do what they need to do, to understand what they need to do to be able to be motivated. But then there's also things, clearly psychological factors like shame and guilt and embarrassment about people's weight, which actually don't motivate us to take better care of ourselves. What they do is they impede upon our ability to take care of ourselves. They discourage our ability for self-care, and they add to self-criticism, they add to self-doubt. And when we feel self-critical and we feel hopeless, what do? Many of us in our consumer-oriented society, we try to comfort ourselves by eating, by consuming, and by avoiding the things that make us feel not so good about ourselves. So then we avoid the gym, we avoid getting out, we don't want to wear clothes that might be revealing, or where we might be putting ourselves in comparison with each other. So the gym is a scary place, you know. And I feel like that's part of what we really have to get our minds around as a society, and who is better equipped to help people get our minds around things than psychologists. So certainly I think that's the role that we have, and that we need to be true to if we really want to help people now with obesity, which in some communities is an epidemic.
Right. And so then this is why all of these factors that you're talking about, this is why individuals who, even though their health is in danger, they're still engaging in behaviors that may not change that.
That's absolutely right.
Because I think that's frustrating for people.
It's absolutely right, and it seems counterintuitive, and people can add, outside people can add judgment. Remember this though, that we talk a lot about weight, we talk about being overweight. Body mass index, the BMI, is actually not a good measure of health, wellness, and longevity. The current president of the Psychological Association, Dr. Laura Lees, is an expert in this area and has kind of shared much of her research with the rest of us, and now we're becoming a little bit more equipped to deal with this ourselves. It's really a matter of fitness. So are you out walking, you know, and are you physically, and fitness is really can be measured by, imagine carrying a sack of flour around the block, how long does it take before you need to stop and take a breath? Well, quite regardless of people's BMI, an individual who's fit is a person who practices physical activity and continues being active. And people that are overweight and people that are underweight both can be fit, and our bodies are all different. So it's really
a lot more than numbers.
It's way more than numbers, and I think it's something that we should be much more cognizant of. That the BMI is a somewhat a misleading indicator, and really comes down to your lifestyle and how you're living.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
Abona kita wala